I'm Dr. Hannah Chusid. I'm a licensed psychologist and a certified yoga instructor, and I'm happy to be a participant with SleepASAP. Before I introduce this week's guest speaker, I'm going to tell you about SleepASAP. SleepASAP is a new global sleep management education platform established by an international team of specialists in different fields such as art therapy, music therapy, psychology, and neurology. And the team is dedicated to promoting awareness and engaging in discussion about effective and affordable alternative solutions beyond medications for people dealing with sleep issues. Whether you have a sleep issue, or you work in this field, or you're a student studying this field, or just in general want to learn, this webinar is for you. Today we have the pleasure to host Jaisri M. Lambert, and we will discuss Ayurveda. Ayurveda seeks to restore health by restoring balance to your individual qualities and elements in the whole psychobiology. Jaisri will unfold that for us to deeper understandings a little bit today. Jaisri Lambert has been practicing Ayurveda and teaching natural therapies since 1983. She's been practicing a variety of natural therapies since 1983, including Ayurveda, and after her own debilitating migraine headaches, that kindled her interest in alternative therapies. Now she's in her mid-60s, and she's an innovative healer who has developed new techniques in energetic healing and invisible anatomy. Her success, she feels, is due to the comprehensiveness and effectiveness of Ayurvedic medicine throughout history, and to the public's sincere search, like her own, for holistic health through natural methods. So welcome, Jaisri. Thank you for joining us for this conversation today.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me.
And to start with, Jaisri, I hope that introduction was clear enough. You've been involved with Ayurveda for a good many years, and for our viewing public, some people have never even heard the term Ayurveda. Can you introduce us in a brief way of something that is your whole life and a big discipline, but to give a general introduction to Ayurveda for us?
Sure, love to. Well, Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word. It comes from two roots, Ayu, life, and Veda, knowledge. So it's the knowledge or science of life. If systematic knowledge becomes a science, surely Ayurveda is very organized, systematized, logical, and really based in the law of cause and effect. It's the world's oldest holistic medical science, so indeed sleeplessness, such a pernicious problem throughout history, throughout cultures, even throughout the ages and stages of life, has been highly studied and highly commented upon.
That's definitely a brief overview. And is there a source, a text source for Ayurveda, or a number of texts? Where was it originated? Give us a little bit more.
Yeah, so Ayurveda originates in the Indus Valley of India and is cognized into written form some 5,000 years ago. There's still scholarly debate on the history, but today there's a heritage of numerous medical scriptures, some of which evidently were destroyed during the British Raj. And what remains, the Charaka Samhita, Shushruta Samhita, the Ashtanga Hridayam, various scriptures, all comment to some degree or another on this issue, which of course is pervasive and therefore pervades, the discussion of health balance.
You're referring to that all these sources comment on the issue of sleeplessness in some way.
Somewhere or another, there's references either to causative factors, consequences, remedial measures. So, it's always been a big issue throughout history.
we're going to get to the specifics. I just want to give a little bit more background about Ayurveda, since it's out of the blue for some people hearing about it. Now, around where I am in Los Angeles, you can take a weekend workshop on Ayurveda or a course that goes for 6 months on Ayurveda, and I know that you have a much more substantial background, and my understanding is that your amount of training in it is very parallel to the number of years that a medical doctor prepares. Can you give us some idea of the depth or years of study that brings
when I first came to this knowledge, Hannah, I was pretty sick myself. I had headaches, migraine headaches, so I really had a very pervasive imbalance in basically all my systems, and set about an apprenticeship. I found a wonderful teacher, Dr. Vasant Lad, who's responsible basically for everything we're about to share today, most everything, and stayed with him about 12 years in personal apprenticeship, of course along with other students. And still today, some 30 plus years later, I still remain as a beginner student, coming again and again to learn more and more. Ayurveda, being the science of all of life, is of course vast and deep. But these basics, sleep, appetite, elimination, these three basic interests of an Ayurvedic practitioner are, always the focus of a consultation.
Okay, so can you tell us what happens if I found an Ayurvedic doctor, and let's say I'm having sleeplessness, and I went to a local somebody who presents themselves as an Ayurvedic consultant? What goes on? Do I disrobe and they listen to my heart with a stethoscope, or what happens in an Ayurvedic consultation?
Well, I'll speak for what happens when people come to see me, because each one practices a little differently probably, but I ask that people invest in their preparation by outlining their concerns, their health history, and their daily routine. So history includes some family reference, and typically we'll, from that starting point, understand where we need to go regarding outcomes to eradicate the concerns, and look very much into the food program, lifestyle program, right use of time, and if needed, herbal medicine, supplementation, but we look very much to the food, lifestyle, breathing, walking, talking, awareness in all the detail of life.
So you used an interesting phrase. You said right use of time. So can you say what you mean by that, and what I would want to be thinking about when I'm looking at my history or my health history and my daily routine? What are you referring to? Time.
It's an interesting question posed in this modern era. What is a daily routine? Because naturally, from ancient science, from Ayurveda, the daily routine, dinacharya, the mastery of each day, making the most of each day, a sort of an ancient carpe diem, if you will. It's to understand, what is the best optimum time to awaken, arise, do the morning practices, and when is optimum to eat? According to your constitution, what is your optimum work in the world? What are your talents, skills, abilities, tendencies, capacities, so that you always remain in balance and fulfill the purpose of life, which is self-realization, liberation.
So what if, so my purpose, and I don't mean me specifically, I'm thinking about, somebody who might present and say, well, my purpose of life, I just need to, make some money to pay the rent and feed my children, and that's my purpose, is to keep myself going. And so what do you mean when you speak of purpose in life? Are you talking about that, of keeping things going?
No, purpose in life, it's a spiritual purpose for each one, to know themselves, to know their potential, and their potential is a spiritual potential. So the Vedic concept, and certainly Vedic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, has that concept that it is the soul that takes on a body, and certainly the body has, you know, four dimensions, so four duties, if you like. One is livelihood. We must do right livelihood. We have to earn our living by our own efforts, and we have to be healthy to be able to do that. But other factors in life, besides using the middle part of life, they used to use this model: 25 years education, 25 years earning, 25 years teaching or retreat and meditation, and 25 years teaching.
So the lifespan was expected that long in an early year.
This is you know, lifespan has varied throughout history, but for, let's take 100 years, our current, you know, really, if our potential, keep in mind that Ayurvedic medicine feels that one should not die by disease, but die instead because it's the end time, the breaths are finished.
So this is truly holistic in that you're looking at the physical health, but life purpose, the sense of a soul in the body. So could I benefit from an Ayurvedic consultation if I don't see myself as a religious person, or even necessarily think of myself as a spiritual person, but I'm really suffering with sleep issues? Could I still benefit, or do I need to adopt this, you know, spiritual point of view?
Very good. Yeah, spiritual point of view, it's simply an acknowledgement that there's something immeasurable, something unnameable that is integral to our essence. But when it comes to sleeplessness, this very a difficult problem for so many, I think Ayurveda meets modern science in such a way that now we have really practical solutions, combining the ancient art of Ayurveda's understanding of food. How does food, let's say the person says, oh, I have had sleeplessness these last 5 years. What is your morning routine? Oh, I only have 3 cups of coffee and only in the morning. So right away we have obvious evidence that, you know, food consumption, choices of what's put into the mouth, is already compromising. So the food program may or may not make a difference. The relaxation practices, yes, they don't have to be taken as spiritual exercises. They can be taken as relaxation exercises, exercises in self-knowledge, self-observation, exercises in breathing, slowing the breathing. These don't require any particular religious context. No. Okay. It's very universal.
Thank you. That's helpful. And you mentioned, you know, the ancient teachings refer to, or at least that's how I understood it, different sleep issues, different times of life. And I know there's so many kinds of sleep issues relating to different stages in life and different circumstances. Can you tell us something about sleeplessness from the Ayurvedic point of view, connected with different life circumstances or stages of life? And you know, this, I know we could do a month-long course on this. So just a little bit of an overview so that different listeners can understand that this might relate to their situation.
Yeah, good question, Hannah. Well, for example, during childhood, people observe, you know, night terrors, sometimes sleepwalking. In the teenage years, sleeplessness in our world can be because of overwhelm and beginning of stress patterns in life. Sleeplessness during the midlife, menopausal phase, is quite typical of hormonal changes in the body, while sleeplessness in the elderly can be related to unresolved issues. It can be related to dietary factors, emotional factors. So we take a global view.
take a break, get some water, whatever you need to do.
Did I set it? I cut off the sound.
Take a break. Just let us know when you're ready again. So until you're ready again, I'll say something more about my experience with Ayurveda. And then you let us know when you're ready, Jaisri, to come back on.
Oh,
So,
yeah, no, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Okay. So, you there with us?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned, I'm going to ask you more about those different types of sleep issues, but you mentioned that you might be prescribing herbs, or you didn't use the word prescription, but herbal regimens or supplements could be part of an Ayurvedic regimen. And, I'm wondering about that. How is that different from, taking herbs that I buy at the health food store, or I've, somebody who feels like they've tried everything. They've been to a doctor of Chinese medicine and tried Chinese herbs, and they feel it hasn't worked. What would be different about taking Ayurvedic herbs?
I think it really depends upon the person's receptivity and their needs. If there is a need for medicine, maybe the situation has become that the serotonin is just constantly streaming. There's never a down cycle of dopamine and melatonin. The herbal medicine helps to nourish the nervous system. So, the term sedative is part of the post-digestive effect of certain herbs. So those, it depends, really. It depends on the person. Some people don't like boiling herbs until they, fill the whole house and then drink that. Some people like taking the herbal powders so that they're, sort of quick and easy and satisfies the 6 tastes. The biology of the human requires 6 tastes in proper balance for that person. Someone with sleeplessness is going to have higher astringency than another person, so their food program has to be adjusted, and herbal program will see also accordingly.
So higher astringency means that's one of the tastes, astringent. Is that what you're referring to?
Right. Sweet, sour, salty are the anabolic tastes that help ground the person. Bitter, pungent, and astringent. Bitter and astringent are catabolic, and pungent taste is metabolic. So as long as they're in balance for that person, but the person with sleeplessness has created an imbalance, excess air element, excess ether element, and the nervous system doesn't adapt to changing cycles. So it has to, in the Ayurvedic concept, remember. The cell is deemed to have memory, so that if the cell forgets, these are neurotransmitter cells, brain cells, forget their proper identity, function, and relationships. So those have to be reminded. So the herbs are to irrigate memory, in part, back into the cell.
So the memory of the correct functioning and relationships of the cells.
Yeah, and right intelligence.
And you mentioned that somebody dealing with sleeplessness has more astringency. Does that mean that they need more of the astringent taste, or they have too much of that?
It may be a little excessive. They may have constipation as well. They may have variable appetite as well, all related to the same problem. So yes, what they eat, how often they eat. Eating before sleep is typically not helpful unless it's a food like, say, boiled milk, which has tryptophan. So tryptophan precursors. So it depends. Not everybody tolerates cow's milk. Not everybody can access healthy cow's milk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean everybody can't access it? Just at the isn't the stuff at the grocery store healthy cow's milk?
No, dear. uh,
So what do you mean by healthy cow's milk?
Healthy cow's milk is from a free-range animal that has been milked that morning. That's fresh milk. Okay.
So probably nobody viewing this unless you're on a farm with an internet connection. So so a lot of what we take for granted of foods from the grocery store or something that might seem healthy, like a carton of milk, may not be. It can be very subtle what kinds of foods could be affecting us. It sounds like. Yeah.
Oh, subtle. This is widely known that, chemical foods in the food chain, whether it's pesticides, no, they have tremendously deep effect on the nervous system, hormonal system, endocrine system.
One of the things I was thinking when you were talking about herbs and my question about the difference with taking Chinese herbs, even if somebody has tried Chinese herbs, first of all, my understanding in Ayurveda, it's not just the taking of herbs. There are a number of other practices which you made reference to, which would be part of a total regimen. It would not be just take these herbs. And
yeah, I think you're quite right there because, for example, pranayama practice, breathing exercises, most helpful. In fact, I think probably key because they're very effective. Naturally, they're free. And it's just a question of the person deciding to master their own mind and deciding to let go of their stress, leave some space in their mind so they can fall asleep, remain asleep, and reprogram. I've had to do this myself in my own life from my own various sleep disorders, not just sleeplessness.
So easier said than done to say, just decide that I'm going to deal with my sleeplessness, just decide that I'm going to let go of some of my stressors, just decide I'm going to. So in an Ayurvedic consultation, do you work with the person kind of like a coach or give specific guidance as to how I might make progress towards the letting go of a stressor or the rearranging of my outlook or my daily routines?
You know, the decision, I feel, is critical in a therapeutic sense. Yes, we have to have the awareness of where we want to go. That way we can be supported towards that. So, yes, time is a factor, naturally, to integrate the habits. And it's not on the first day of meditation that we fall asleep easily. It's a practice. So it develops and deepens month to month, year to year. And a person is meant to master their mind. So this often will be an entry point to learn how to fall asleep at a right time, how to wake up refreshed.
Okay. And one of the things that I was thinking about too in the difference in taking Ayurvedic herbs is, and this is probably more than we can go into in detail, but that there's an awareness of different levels of absorption. I'm thinking of the koshas, but that was new information for me to understand that I might not even see effects for 5 to 6 to 7 weeks as my system is integrating herbs at a different level. Something, is that universal?
You know, time is a factor for all of us. It's one of our governing principles, along with gravity and various other laws. And so, no doubt, training the mind to fall asleep at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, training the mind to wake up, early, say the person is, heavier, doesn't need as much sleep to wake up early, but if the person is light, thin, skinny, they will probably need more sleep because their metabolism is higher. So let's say they have 7, 8 hours of sleep as an ideal. I think Ayurveda definitely takes things in an individual sense. Each person is unique, has their own patterns, but an ideal pattern is probably common to most of us.
And what would that be? What would that look like?
Early to bed, early to rise. Now, when people do daytime sleeping, they can trigger their clock into nighttime mode. So now there's an endocrine disturbance, and they may not sleep as well at night.
So let's say I don't do daytime sleeping, daytime napping, but you know, I gotta be. All my friends are at night. I work all day. That's the only time I'm going to see friends or go on dates, or you know, I'm on a board that meets. The meeting doesn't even start till 7 p.m. I mean, we're in the modern world, and half of what I need to get done happens between 6 p.m. and midnight. How do you guide somebody to deal with these factors?
Mm-hmm. Stress is indeed the main culprit, the overwhelm, the overload. So the principle of balance from Ayurveda, from ancient times, is to work for livelihood to 1/2 our capacity. So let's break this down a bit. To work for livelihood, our income, our living, to 1/2 our capacity. First of all, we need to know our capacity. What is our potential? So half is lawful to spend for earning a living, and the other activities of life are the other half. So that is the balance that was recommended. Now, surely modern principles have gone way out on a limb that a 2 o'clock bedtime is normal. So the person may be overwrought and take a pill, and then they have to get up by 5, 6. So now they're drinking coffee, and you know, the whole situation has to be looked at, and how that individual participates. What are the decisions of your priorities? What is the natural cycle of the evening, which is to wind down? No, I don't say don't socialize. That's not what I'm saying at all. But let's think how these 24 hours can meet our needs and not draw us into imbalance.
So, so really, I just have to start looking at every part of my day and every part of my lifestyle, it sounds like.
Ayurveda is a holistic approach. The whole day, the whole year, the whole life. Relationships, partnerships, what do we worry about most? Job and relationships. So we have to find ways in the meditation to deal with these stressors, solve the problem, bring about creative renewal. Relax the mind, clear the mind.
So you mentioned meditation again. You mentioned it a few times. So are you talking about a specific thing that you or another Ayurvedic practitioner is going to, you know, a certain, like I have to sit cross-legged for an hour, or what are you referring to with meditation?
Very good question. So for me, meditation is the simplest thing of life. What every child knows, which is how to sit quietly, close the eyes, gaze into the mid-forehead, and just relax. Relax the breath, deepen the breath. Relax the body. You can sit in any posture where the back is straight.
Can I do it lying down on my back?
You may indeed probably support your knees like a yoga nidra, which is the sleep exercise, if you will. One way to achieve sound sleep is yoga nidra, laying face up, palms up, eyes closed, deepening the breathing, making it more and more silent, and more space is created. The person drifts off.
So maybe we could speak about some specific different kinds of sleep issues. You mentioned, you know, children with night terrors and menopausal or other hormonal issues, of course, speaking about women in particular. Are there any things that are unique about dealing with children and sleep issues?
You know, for ailments of children, we have to treat the parents because whatever the child is mirroring very probably comes from the parental relationship one way or the other. So really we're looking at family dynamics, how to make sure the child's bedtime is comfortable, and how to make sure the daytime is not subject to, um, fear. So in many places that's just not possible for children. But let's say it's possible, then yes, that we have to treat the whole family. Now we'll move to the menopausal woman. Her sleeplessness is very probably endocrine related, hormonally related. So certainly balance is critical there. She's in a change of life, so she has to change and adapt. What was done before was working is now not working. The season is changing, so we have to adapt. Just like when fall comes to winter, we have to adapt, take out the snow boots.
So change of lifestyle, maybe change of diet, as well as herbal supplements.
Yeah, very often the woman needs to eat much less. Very often she needs to learn new practices such as oiling herself, maybe oiling the crown of her head, soles of her feet. These are entry points for the nerve endings according to Vedic anatomy. And applying oil to the crown of the head and soles of the feet at bedtime, like just plain warm sesame oil, can help any age, children, menopausal women, elderly people, people with job stress. It's
So
a moment. It's a moment when the oil is applied at bedtime to really slow down,
So
change.
that's a whole new idea to hear, so many things that are so familiar to you, and you've taught me over the years. But this idea of oiling oneself, it's like, what do you mean? I take the bottle of sesame oil from the kitchen and I pour it on my head. What do you mean oiling myself? I use scented, body lotion. So maybe you could say something more about this practice of oiling.
So self-oiling, the Abhyanga, I think is one of the most valuable practices from Ayurvedic medicine for us in modern times. Why? Because it's very directly anti-stress. The self-oiling, the skin is considered an organ of assimilation as well as an organ of respiration. So the skin takes in the oils, and the skin is deemed to have 7 layers corresponding to 7 tissue levels. Therefore, the oil, the pacification of sleeplessness it goes deeply into the nerves, deeply into the nervous system. So oil assimilation is very critical in sleep management to massage oneself, not on the menstrual cycle, but at most other times, unless there's a contraindication of some type. Maybe the person has too much phlegm, they have a cold, or various other contraindications. But usually, to apply some warm, perhaps sesame oil to the whole body, yes, head, massaging the whole, give yourself a lovely head massage, and use upward strokes on the limbs and body, and wow, you have stamina, you have really more flexibility, and especially more calm.
So, and you mentioned women's hormonal issues, but oiling is for men too, isn't it? This body oil.
Babies, seniors, everybody. There are some contraindications if there's too much oiliness already in the body, but generally it's a almost universal practice.
And are we talking about something like I'd go to the kitchen section of the grocery store and get olive oil or sesame oil, or is that what the kind of oil I'm using?
Well, I prefer to suggest organically grown seeds and their oils. So if you can find a brand that has no, or limited at any rate, the best quality that you can, I think, to put on your skin as food, really, it's going to be assimilated into your general circulation. So warm sesame oil, sunflower oil, coconut oil, it depends on your constitutional type.
Okay. And I will say, for those who may be hearing about this for the first time, that it sounds oily. It sounds like that could be maybe unpleasant, but it takes a little bit of getting used to what the right amount is and to not use too much so you don't have this thick layer of oil. And after the oiling, and you give some time for the oil to sink in. Am I correct that you either take a hot shower or a hot bath if you can to help absorb the oils more? Correct?
Yes, well said. The shower afterwards, naturally, that oil's probably going to stay on only for half an hour, and during that time you may want to do some stretching, breathing exercises, some preparation for the day. And yeah, when the person showers, usually I suggest don't use soap, just shampoo if you really want to. Rinse it from your hair, but really makes your hair very soft, and it also, very much penetrates to the bone lining, strengthens the joints. Really, it's fabulous, and especially for the candidate of sleeplessness.
Yeah.
Oil. Oil, you and I, we grew up with what I call 17 magazine syndrome. Means oiliness is icky. But I found out from my study of Ayurveda that oil is called sneha in Sanskrit, which means love. So imagine how many sesame seeds it took to produce that oil to contribute to your sleep.
This is such a whole new way of thinking that, this is something that will take a little bit of individual guidance or education for somebody coming to an Ayurvedic consultant, but I'll personally attest that it's really, it's easy to get this positive addiction to self-oiling, and the self-massage is part of it, which actually even has the self-care aspect of taking an extra 5 minutes or an extra 35 minutes in one's self-care routine.
There's also the the neurological benefits is the balance of neurotransmitters, the endorphins that are generated. The biochemical changes of self-oiling are, absolutely convincing.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan myself, from having learned through you and following that practice. And when I miss days of doing that, I really feel the difference. So we jump childhood to menopause, that huge area in between, and young people have so many pools with education and work and necessity of social life, and maybe even have the most struggles of lightening their schedule with the pools towards also having a social life. And any particular guidance for that whole, I understand the individual, but can we say something about that difficult time between adolescence and, it's a lot of years till menopause for women, what kinds of adjustments somebody could make that are realistic?
I feel I have tremendous sympathy for the overworked mother who just is exhausted, and because of exhaustion cannot fall asleep. This person really does have help with herbal supplementation, also adjusting their life to a comfortable, manageable output so that they can accomplish their essentials. So whether it's a student, all right, who's studying, say, till 3 a.m., we want to get that study in during the day. Do the homework first, right after school, and then begin to wind down so that the person gets sufficient sleep, that next day morning they're alert. They can focus, concentrate. Similar for the businessman who has so many projects on the plate, so many people depending on him, so many decisions to have to make that the nighttime seems like the only suitable time. This is why we give a designated time at the beginning of meditation to hear all these carousel thoughts. Same ones going round and round. Stop that carousel at a certain point and just acknowledge that issue. If it can be solved right then and there, very good. The concept of prashna in Vedic thinking is that once the person inquires about something, their response is contained within that inquiry. So this concept that how can I solve this problem, right there they have the answer if they're willing to listen. So at that point they can invite their mind, look, you have been heard. Now you're dismissed until tomorrow. I mean, the person owns this mind, right? They can do this. They're the only one can do this. So they'll dismiss that thought. Yes, it takes little practice, but it's worth the little practice that it takes to do it because the mind's so eager to be unburdened. And then invite it back the next day so that it doesn't feel ignored or whatever. Then the program then the programming can be established to allow that deep sleep to go deeper and deeper because cells repair during the deep sleep. So there's no way to repair this situation unless the early bedtime comes on stream. So it doesn't matter who it is, really. Early to bed is still a golden aphorism.
Jaisri, I know we've just barely skimmed the surface of this huge and important topic, but I think that this concept that you just shared is a good one for us to close on, and our time is such that we need to. The concept that you mentioned of prashna, that the a response or resolution or insight is contained within the question or the challenge itself. That's a perfect concept for us to end on, because I think it also refers back to what you said earlier, that the imbalance that sleeplessness indicates, it can be the doorway into beginning the process for not only correcting that symptom, but that symptom is the doorway for reorganizing the life, or rebalancing body, mind, and soul, life purpose, fulfillment, all of those things. So would that be, did I?
That's a lovely summary, my dear Hannah. Lovely summary.
Well, thank you very much. Last point. We'll have your website posted on our Facebook page and our meetup page of SleepASAP, so people who want to reach you or find out about courses from you or consultations. I know that it can be important to have a consultation in person in Ayurveda for a number of reasons. And do you have any last tips in terms of somebody finding resources either free or online, or even how do they find a good local person? What should they look for?
You know, our National Ayurvedic Medical Association's website has a directory of people all over North America, some in Europe and some elsewhere as well. So whoever is a member of that professional organization can be found through that. Otherwise, just Google your local practitioner in your town. And some people do phone consultations, distance consultations. It depends. It depends what's going to best meet the person's needs. And no doubt it's ideal to be able to feel their pulse and feel the whole history and prognosis, but that may not be possible.
So perhaps we'll post that resource that you've mentioned. We'll post that as well for people to have that the Ayurvedic Association as a good point for referral. And I want to thank you, Jaisri, for joining us, and thank you to everybody who's tuned into this webinar. And we invite you to follow SleepASAP on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Google+, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is you can find it under iCanSleep, to find other informative webinars with other experts from holistic fields. Thank you so much, Jaisri Lambert, for your wealth of knowledge, which I know we've just barely said hello, but it's been very valuable. Thank you very much.
Lovely to touch base together, my dear Hannah. Bye for now.
I'm Dr. Hannah Chusid. I'm a licensed psychologist and a certified yoga instructor, and I'm happy to be a participant with SleepASAP. Before I introduce this week's guest speaker, I'm going to tell you about SleepASAP. SleepASAP is a new global sleep management education platform established by an international team of specialists in different fields such as art therapy, music therapy, psychology, and neurology. The team is dedicated to promoting awareness and engaging in discussion about effective and affordable alternative solutions beyond medications for people dealing with sleep issues. Whether you have a sleep issue, or you work in this field, or you're a student studying this field, or just in general want to learn, this webinar is for you. Today we have the pleasure to host Jaisri M. Lambert, and we will discuss, you're referring to that all these sources comment on the issue of sleeplessness in some way.
Somewhere or another, there's references either to causative factors, consequences, remedial measures. So, you know, it's always been a big issue throughout history.
We're going to get to the specifics. I just want to give a little bit more background about Ayurveda, since, you know, it's out of the blue for some people hearing about it. Now, you know, around where I am in Los Angeles, you can take a weekend workshop on Ayurveda, or a course that goes for 6 months on Ayurveda, and I know that you have a much more substantial background, and my understanding is that your amount of training in it is very parallel to the number of years that a medical doctor prepares. Can you give us some idea of the depth or years of study that brings you?
Know, when I first came to this knowledge, Hannah, I was pretty sick myself. I had headaches, highly commented upon.
That's definitely a brief overview. And is there a source, a text source for Ayurveda, or a number of texts? Where was it originated? Give us a little bit more.
Yeah, so Ayurveda originates in the Indus Valley of India and is cognized into written form some 5,000 years ago. There's still scholarly debate on the history, but today there's a heritage of numerous medical scriptures, some of which evidently were destroyed during the British Raj. And what remains, the Charaka Samhita, Shushruta Samhita, the Ashtanga Hridayam, various scriptures, all comment to some degree or another on this issue, which of course is pervasive and therefore pervades, you know, the discussion of health balance. Thanks so much for inviting me.
And to start with, Jaisri, I hope that introduction was clear enough. You've been involved with Ayurveda for a good many years, and for our viewing public, some people have never even heard the term Ayurveda. Can you introduce us in a brief way of something that is your whole life and a big discipline, but to give a general introduction to Ayurveda for us?
Sure, love to. Well, Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word. It comes from two roots, Ayu, life, and Veda, knowledge. So it's the knowledge or science of life. If systematic knowledge becomes a science, surely Ayurveda is very organized, systematized, logical, and really based in the law of cause and effect. It's the world's oldest holistic medical science, so indeed sleeplessness, such a pernicious problem throughout history, throughout cultures, even throughout the ages and stages of life, has been highly studied in
Ayurveda. Ayurveda seeks to restore health by restoring balance to your individual qualities and elements in the whole psychobiology. Jaisri will unfold that for us to deeper understandings a little bit today. Jaisri Lambert has been practicing Ayurveda and teaching natural therapies since 1983. I'm sorry, she's been practicing a variety of natural therapies since 1983, including Ayurveda more and after her own debilitating migraine headaches that kindled her interest in alternative therapies. Now she's in her mid-60s, and she's an innovative healer who has developed new techniques in energetic healing and invisible anatomy. Her success, she feels, is due to the comprehensiveness and effectiveness of Ayurvedic medicine throughout history, and to the public's sincere search, like her own, for holistic health through natural methods. So welcome, Jaisri. Thank you for joining us for this conversation today.
Well,